the bombing, the drones, the unmanned bombers, and they have effects. So one of the most troubled regions where there's been a lot of fighting going on is Bajaur province, on what's called the Pakistani side of the Durand line. Local militants there have told the press that the fighting was largely motivated by a drone bombing, which I don't think was even reported here, reported in the Pakistani press. A drone hit a madrasa, a school, killed some 80 to 85 people, and these are what Winston Churchill called uncivilized tribes. They don't understand our high moral and cultural level, and they get upset by things like that. So it started a reaction which blew up into a big war, and every one of the drone attacks has that effect. Hamid Karzai, the president of Afghanistan, his first message to Obama was a plea to stop the attacks on Afghan civilians. He also called for a deadline for withdrawal of all foreign troops. He even went on and said that he wants negotiations among all Afghans. He's said that he would be glad to welcome Mullah Omar, the head of the Taliban, who's an Afghan, for discussions about how to terminate the conflict. And he said that if the U.S. doesn't like that, they'll have a choice of either accepting it or throwing them out. Well, the second choice is the one that was made. As soon as Karzai was very popular, remember, a lot of awe about his wonderful costume and how he looked and so on. But that's shifted. Now, after these breaches of discipline, his image changed sharply. He's condemned as corrupt, ineffective, so on. We have to do something about it. And what's being done about it is what you'd expect. Britain and the United States agreed to replace it. They can't formally do it, but they're going to restructure Afghanistan, which of course are right, so that a new administrative officer will be introduced who will theoretically take responsibility, meaning take orders from us. And Karzai can be a symbolic figure. I don't think his letter to Obama was ever answered except by more attacks. Is there another possibility? Yeah, there are other possibilities. I mean, there's an Afghan peace movement, a substantial one, which for years has been calling for an end to the violence. Put down your guns. If you want to be here, fine, but come with aid and reconstruction. Exactly the scale is not known, but Western polls taken out in Afghanistan indicate that about 75% of the population want negotiation among Afghans. That means all Afghans. And they want to settle their own affairs, have a communal assembly, dear God, devoted to peace, and if the foreigners are there, they should be there for aid and reconstruction, not for killing. We don't know the numbers. The Washington Post, one of the few comments on it, their corresponding Pamela Constable said that one of the big problems the U.S. forces, the new forces, are going to face when they get to Afghanistan, of course, one of the problems will be insurgency. The other problem will be they're not wanted. And they'll have to somehow deal with this tricky issue. Karzai is not super popular. His popularity runs about 50% according to Western polls, but that's almost twice as high as the popularity of the Western forces, the American forces there. So that's another technical difficulty that has to be dealt with somehow. Another aspect of the escalated attack in AFPAC is the consequences of which could be extremely grim for Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. Another aspect is that NATO, as you know, is being encouraged to take a bigger role in this, which raises interesting questions like why does NATO exist? I mean, a pretty simple question. I mean, there was a theoretical reason up until about 1990. Whether you believe it or not is another question, but it was claimed that it existed as a defensive alliance to protect Western Europe from being overrun by the Mongols directed in Moscow. Okay, maybe not. But whatever one thinks of that argument, it was gone by the time that the Soviet system collapsed. At that time, Gorbachev, Prime Minister Gorbachev, made an astonishing concession to the West. He agreed to allow a united Germany to join, and of course a militarized Germany, to join a NATO, hostile military alliance. And that's pretty remarkable when you consider that Germany alone had practically destroyed Russia twice in the past century, and now it was going to be allowed to join a major military alliance targeting Russia and led by the world's most awesome superpower in history, which is very hostile. But he did insist on a condition. This was the Bush #1 administration, Bush-Baker. The condition was that, and it was accepted by Bush and Baker, that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east. That was the formulation. That would give Russia some kind of a buffer zone. He also made a proposal that there should be a nuclear weapons-free zone from the Arctic to the Baltic, which would also be a way of easing potential tensions. As far as I know, that never even got a response, kind of like Karzai's plea to stop killing us. So that was rejected, but Bush and Baker did agree, pledge not to extend NATO 1 inch to the east. Well, Bill Clinton won the next election. One of his first acts was to extend NATO to the east. A very threatening act to the Russians. And of course it increased tensions and hostility. Russia dropped its pledge, no first use pledge, no first use of nuclear weapons. NATO has never dropped the pledge, but Russia had dropped it, they reinstated it, and rearmament, development of offensive weapons, of course, continued. All of that escalated sharply under Bush. Same aggressive militarism leads to that natural response, makes the world more dangerous. Well, Obama's national security advisor, James Jones, former Marine commandant, is a leading exponent of the idea that NATO should expand farther to the east and to the south. De Hoop Scheffer, the Dutch head of NATO, has explained that NATO must become an intervention force to protect pipelines and sea lanes, in other words, to ensure that Europe and the United States have control of the world's energy system. And that's what we can anticipate. As you probably know, there's major demonstrations next week in Strasbourg protesting NATO's expansion, in fact NATO's existence. And one task for the future for us, not far future now, is to try to do something about this. It's all starting here. They shouldn't be in Afghanistan, and there's no reason why they should be anywhere. Well, that's a little bit of one piece of the story. AFPAC, it's of course much worse. I mean, the Bush administration did institute plans to establish, what's called an anti-missile system in Eastern Europe, in Czechoslovakia and Poland. Theoretical